Welcome everyone. Welcome. Another um, wow, this is episode number two. I'm really excited for our Baztec Ice Team episode number two. I'm your host, Ray Ruiz, and today we have two awesome special guests with us today, and we're going to get into who they are. But before we get started, I want to just thank the folks who make this possible for us. Uh, Got to give a big shout out to our number one of our favorite sponsors, Grain Belt. Shell's family, thank you so much for all the delicious beer. Cheers. And we can't do it without Clam. They're a great supporter of ours. Are also Joe Sporting Goods, my buddy Tom Campbell and Dries Smasher Bates, Rodrigo Juarez from Tax Actions, which he's going to be on here talking about taxes and fishing. I know that is not a good mix. People are like, what? But he's a good dude and he's a big supporter of ours. Also, Vexlar. Vexlar is a big supporter of ours, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you. Um, so let's get started. Ice fishing, cool. Well, welcome. Uh, I want to start by a previous podcast. We're talking a lot about myself and Philip Bidon and our other pro staff. And this, I want to dedicate this particular podcast for you guys. Because you guys are the make this Bass Tech happen. Without you guys, I couldn't be able to do this work. So I want to start with introductions. So we'll start. Philip, we'll start with you. And I just want you. I want people in the audience, people, our folks in the community, get to know who you are, who you guys are, you know. So I'm just gonna ask you some real simple questions, and I want you to just go. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome, man. Well, let's see. Philip, tell us, introduce name and where did you grow up? Your full name. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, my name's Philip Knopp. I grew up in Minnetonka, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis. Yeah.
Awesome, man. That's cool. Where'd you go to school?
Uh, Went to high school and Minnetonka High School, and then college
Nice,
at University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, so
nice,
pretty
man.
close to here.
And you majored in.
Mechanical engineering. Yeah.
Wow, look at that. An angler and an engineer, baby. Ooh, that's what's up. And Philip and I have been talking about, like, one of the things that I love picking his brain, especially the engineering side of the brain, which is most of his brain, um, is he finds fascination in, like, little things, little mechanical things. He's like, hey man, this is fascinating. I can't believe how this works. And we're out there doing our thing, out there ice fishing. And just to hear you speak of something that I would have never noticed until you pointed out is really cool. So thank you for pointing the obvious on a caveman like me, man. So I appreciate that. All right, we're dude, how did you get started? Tell us fishing.
Yeah.
Open water fishing and ice fishing. How did you get started?
So, like, most of my background was in open water fishing when I was is pretty much when I could walk, like 4 years old. My grandpa, he was a really big fisherman. Uh, in his younger years, did some bass fishing, but mostly like walleye, and loved going up to Canada, going up to Lake of the Woods. But they had a place on Lake Waconia where they retired there, and so I learned basically just right off the dock. Had a little chair, he had his chair, sit next to each other, and just fish for panfish, bass, everything that you could get from the dock, basically. And yeah, so
Nice,
I had a pretty early start with it, and yeah, just really took to it right away. So
nice, man.
yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Did When you were out there, was there something in particular that your grandpa taught you that you were like, oh man, that's so cool? Like, we all learn how to fish, but there's like
Mhm.
one technique or one folklore
Yeah.
story, something that like just gets like
Yeah.
literally hooks you, pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was honestly he would always say the fish are right under the dock or they're right under the boat. It's like the biggest fish. Like I feel like when I was little, I always wanted to cast all the way out. Always want to go somewhere else and not like the spot that I've always fished in because it's like you always venture out really far, but it might be right close to home where you're gonna catch the fish. So
Right.
I would cast out and then I wouldn't catch any fish, and you'd see him just drop it right under the boat and you catch a massive bass. And yeah, that's my secret is I guess for anyone, yeah, fish
Yeah.
under the boats.
And under the
Skip the
docks.
docks, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really interesting that you mentioned that because during our programs, a lot of people say, "Well, aren't the fish in the middle of the
Yeah.
lake?" How many times have you guys heard that?
Every time.
Every
Yeah.
time, which is true if there's a grass line, if there's a
Yeah.
rock pile, if
Mhm.
there's a
Structure.
structure, if there's something, yes. But if it's just 80 feet, no, they're not
Yeah.
gonna they're not gonna be there, in the middle of the lake. So a lot of times, as you're right, it's like
Yeah.
the dock is a piece of structure where the fish live. They live in that shade. So we'll get into that later. But so that's how you got started, man. That's cool, man. So your family, they're anglers. Your grandpa.
Yeah, mostly my grandpa and my mom. My mom and I have always fished together. The rest of my family, not so much, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's what's
yeah,
up, man. So, for a lot of folks in the community, uh, want to know because this is a really cool story, man.
yeah,
Like what you're about, because I'm really intrigued, and the folks are intrigued how you got started. My next question is, how
yeah,
did you get involved with Baztec?
yeah. Yeah, I guess the biggest thing I was like, I had graduated school, I was working and kind of wanted to do something in addition to working and just like help out. And when I was young, or in all of elementary school, I went to a Spanish immersion. So it was like Spanish, like 6 hours a day, every day. And so I was fluent and still am to some extent, but I think I have to work on it and get practice. And so like I found like the opportunity to be able to help out, do something I love, fishing, and then also like work on my Spanish and learn more about the community here was really big for me. And yeah, just interested. So
Nice, man.
yeah.
That's cool. Can you tell people about how, like, you emailed me, but how that happen? How did you find out about like Baztec? Can you tell that story, Philip?
I think my mom might have found it somehow and
Yeah,
sent
you
me a
telling me that.
message. Yeah, when she found it, she did some
Yeah, it's
interesting niche
yeah,
things,
yeah,
and
for
was
sure,
like, oh,
for
you'd
sure.
be interested in that. So maybe it was a
It was the Carrie Levin
yeah,
thing
Carrie 11.
they
Yeah,
did on the nonprofit side
yeah,
of our organization, which is Baztec Fishing and Outdoors,
hmm
our nonprofit. And Philip, if I may,
yeah,
kind of carry on with your story, I get an email from him. And I'm like, who's this Philip guy? And he's like, hey man, my mom told me about this thing she saw. I'm really interested. This is literally what he said. He's like, I really like the work you're doing. It's awesome. I'd love to help out and be a part of it. And I could work on my Spanish. And I love fishing. I'm like, my kind of guy. And I really
yeah,
appreciated that because sometimes it takes a lot of guts to do that, man,
yeah,
on the unknown because of a lot of reasons, rejection or maybe not knowing like who's this guy,
yeah,
like what I mean, like. But I really appreciate that, man. Thank
yeah,
you,
man.
and
Thank you.
everything you do for this company,
Yeah,
I mean, I can't tell you how grateful this organization is, man. We're really,
yeah,
really lucky to have you, and your parents would be your grandpa, parents, everyone
yeah.
is very proud. I'm sure they're very proud of you, so I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
absolutely,
appreciate it.
man. So moving on. Oh my, moving on. So uh, I want to introduce our next guest. Would you be? You're like, is he going to do it? Am I going to do it? All right. So this is Diana. Can you first and last name? Where do you grow up and what do you do for work?
Diana Cobbs. I grew up in South Minneapolis, and I am currently my official title is student service specialist at an elementary school, Spanish immersion elementary school.
Cool. Kind of dean of students kind
Dean
of
of
deal.
students, yeah.
Yeah, right on. So you shared with me a picture of you fishing, ice fishing, many, 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 many years ago. Which was cool. But can you tell the audience, and tell our listeners, how did you get started ice fishing?
Yeah, so that was my first experience ice fishing. Was just I was with some friends in my neighborhood up in Fargo, North Dakota.
Is that where you went? That's what you went to school.
That's where I went to school and I taught up there for
Yeah.
many
Okay.
years. And they, after a swim meet in Detroit Lakes one weekend, they said, "Hey, come ice fishing," and I was like, "I don't drive on the ice." But they picked me up on shore, and then we drove out to the little hub.
Yeah.
We ice fished for the day. We didn't catch much that day, but it was sure fun,
Mm,
relaxing, a way to just, and it kind of hooked me into just a way to relax for the day.
yeah. So your family fishes, or they fish. Your
Mhm.
brother, your nieces and nephews. Um, did that kind of growing up? Was that something that you guys did often, or? with your
I
dad, your mom.
definitely did fish.
You're like,
My
no.
aunt's cabin would fish. They would fish. As a girl, I wasn't always invited,
Mm,
and they would get up
weird.
incredibly early in the morning to go fishing, which I also thought was weird and didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when the fish bites. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they would go out in the evening, and I definitely wasn't invited in the evenings usually. Sometimes, but
Mm,
not very often. So, and now my brother fishes up at his in-laws' cabin
mm-hmm.
house.
Cool. Cool. You wanna so transitioning there, like we talked about like how you got started fishing. We all have these really cool stories on how we all started. You know, moving to Baztec. How did that transition happen? How did you get involved with us with Baztec? By accident, by proxy. Yeah,
You
yeah. We went
we
fishing a few
fish all
times.
the time.
Yeah,
So,
and you're right. Like we started fishing all the time, and fished with you, with Abby Rabine. Big shout out to Abby. She got third. Was it third place?
third place, yeah, Ice Queen
Ice
tournament.
Queen tournament, dude. Yeah, big shout out to Abs. Yeah, man. She's a savage, man. She's so good. She's really really good. But that's how it all started, and then Diana. Jared Cuevas, our other pro staff, we what I started doing with everyone, and I'm going to do this with Philip too, and our junior pro staff is give you guys classes, and what I mean by classes is not a formal deal. It's where you guys will pick a technique or series of techniques, and we kind of go through those techniques, and you refine that one technique or two techniques and move on. And it's really interesting because it's seasonal. You know what I mean? Like you got early ice, regular ice, late ice, and then there's stuff in between. Then you got fishing in the full moon, the new moon, the conditions that we have now, which are not very good. They're very
Mhm.
challenging, So, and for open water, it's kind of the same thing. So it's something that we take great pride in, here, and we have some of the best guys and gals in the world, man. In my opinion, with Clam, Clam has some incredible pro staff, and we're lucky to have them as a supporter and a sponsor, and we can tap into, their mind, their fishing mind, their fishing IQ, and like ask them, hey, what do you do in this situation, and so on and so forth. So that's the next thing that we're going to develop all our pro staff in that manner. So yeah, moving forward, I want to talk about a couple things. Ice fishing, because this is ice fishing podcast. We had to cancel. Baztec had to cancel quite a few events this year. We were able to fit in five. Really,
Squished him
we
in.
squished them in, man, and we were all there.
Yeah.
So thanks to you guys. Let's talk about those events. Excuse me, Deanna. I'll start with, or Philip. I'll start with you. Um, what did you think of those events, those community outreach events? Because we did it with a multitude of different organizations, community partners, but what did you think overall of it? And we'll get more specific, but what did you think overall?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it seeing like everyone across the spectrum from kids to adults, parents, everyone kind of like everyone was not, I guess, approaching it the same, and they all learned and they're interested, and I think it was interesting. I think you made it interesting. I think oftentimes people are more excited about the augers than the fishing itself sometimes, and
Right.
there's like unique things that if you that's your one chance to pull someone into the sport really in or to get them interested in fishing in general. And I think that everyone seemed very very engaged. It's not very often you have a huge group of kids and they're all like actually dialed in and paying attention, and so
Yeah,
did
no,
something right,
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. Deanna, same question. What overall, what did you, what did you think of all the, it's a, it's a lot of it's a lot of events in one weekend, man. What did you think?
I think what was most was just the variety of people we had and how many new people we had. I know there were one family that had just moved to the United
Yeah.
States within a few months, and here they are ice fishing.
Now, can you tell the folks where they were from?
They're from Colombia, right?
And there's no ice fishing in
Well,
Colombia,
no, there's
man.
no ice
And
fishing
if
in
there
Colombia.
is, something's wrong,
Right.
terribly wrong.
Yeah. But here they are ice fishing 3 months after they moved here to Minnesota. And there are many people in Minnesota that have never ice fished in their life.
Yeah.
And they're taking advantage of everything Minnesota has
Yeah.
to offer since moving here. And then we had Anna from Dakota County.
Dakota County, Anna Fair.
Yeah,
Big shout out to her. Big
Big
shout out to Anna Fair.
yak tracks and everything, so everyone was safe. But just, I mean, it was just amazing the variety of people we had. How excited they were.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second because you pointed that out, and I was like, "Oh man, that's true." And I remember Philip was like, "Oh man, I forgot my yak tracks, or I didn't. He didn't have them." And this community partner, Anna Ferris from Dakota County, and again, big shout out to Dakota County, our partner, and Anna Ferris came in with like a tremendous amount of resources, man. Like I've never seen nothing like that.
Yeah, no, it was amazing.
Yeah,
To make sure everyone would be comfortable while out on the ice.
yeah. And would you guys agree that that's a big barrier for these communities, right? Like,
Yeah.
so they're hungry and they have this appetite, right, to go out and like I want to learn how to do this and that, but they show up in Jordans or gym shoes, ankle socks, leggings, jeans, or something.
I think they just don't know
They
what to
right,
wear.
right. And to be fair, if you don't know, you don't know. And
Yeah.
but here's the thing that happens, and we know this doing this work. That's a it could turn you off to the
Yeah.
sport. I mean, Philip, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Something I was thinking about before we had the events too is, if it's slushy and people don't have boots, like it's a pretty big hobby killer if your feet are cold and you slip and fall and you get covered in water or your hands get cold. So I think, yeah, having that resource there was awesome because then it's kind of levels the playing field for people and it makes them actually be able to focus on the activity itself and not be worried about being cold or yeah, not slipping on ice and all these like things that you would, yeah, it was good to have.
Yeah, and it was and the for the conditions that we had about 10 inches, 9 inches, about 10 on average. The certain parts of the lake was 11 and a half inches, but you had straight ice. There was
Yeah.
no snow.
Yeah.
It was straight ice. So people were like walking like penguins, you know, walking like penguins, or they were sliding. They were doing the electric slide,
Yeah.
you know. So it was really interesting. Deanna, could you talk a little bit about like what your opinion is on like some of those barriers when folks do show up to these events, want to participate, want to be engaged, but then you see them and like you're like, oh man, like you don't have the boots, you don't have the gear. Like what do you think about that?
I think it's just, I mean, it's a matter of education, right? Like, what do you wear to go outside? And I mean, at school, we get usually the kids come dressed with their boots and their snow pants, and well, not this year because we don't have snow, but and
Mm.
everything else. But the parents are the ones that are oftentimes making sure that their kids are dressed appropriately. And the parents don't have it.
Right.
But I mean, it's a matter of, you're right, like making sure that they're dressed appropriately so they don't get turned off the sport.
Would you share with the folks with and Philip hasn't heard this story yet about the Three Rivers? Remember when we did the thing with Three Rivers and Nick Seiko?
Yeah.
Big shout out to Three Rivers. They're a great organization. They're also a partner of ours. Nick's great, man. He's awesome. Great educator, great angler. The guy's amazing. I'll set the stage. So we get there, and it's the Columbia Heights School
Yep.
that was
Yep.
that got it was a what was it? What it was ice fishing and
Snowshoeing.
snowshoeing. It
Yep.
was a combination of both.
Hmm.
So we get there, and there's three pro staff, and we're doing this bilingual deal, and we're ready to go. We're out on the ice. I'm busy. I'm like, getting things organized and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, continue the story. Like you identify there was a little bit of a issue with a woman. Not a bad issue, but
No, she had on these white tennis shoes and ankle socks and a pair of leggings over it. So there was like this much of her ankle showing, and it was cold that day. I mean, it was, I don't know, 10 degrees,
Yeah.
12 degrees. I mean, not around freezing. It was cold.
yeah,
And so it was Abby who had extra socks.
She had them on.
She
She
had them
took
on. She took them off her feet,
and
extra wool socks, and handed them to this lady and said,
yeah,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know, you got to put these on."
yeah.
And I think she was internally grateful.
Well, yeah,
I mean, her feet were somewhat warm,
yeah. It was.
warmest in those tennis shoes,
Well,
but
yeah, I remember you telling me the story. I was like, what? And I looked, and I was like, she is. She's got ankle socks on
yeah.
and gym shoes. I'm like, holy
Now her
crap.
kids had boots and snow
Yeah.
pants
I
and a
mean,
jacket and a hat
her
and
kids were
gloves.
fine.
Yes, her kids were beautiful, but
They were beautiful little kids, and they
yeah.
were. I mean, they were to the T, man. They were.
Hmm.
I mean, you couldn't. No cold was getting in there, but then again, the parents.
Yeah.
Those are the. I mean, and that goes the sacrifice for their kids so they can have these opportunities. But again, like you guys were saying, we have to educate. And that's why it's so important to do these podcasts and let people know, hey, listen, man, you have to wear proper gear when you're out there. You have to, if you can't afford it, go and get whatever you can afford and layer up, because it's, people are probably saying, hey, what is Ray doing over here? Got
Yeah.
my, my, my freaking, Phil, you want another one?
I'm good right now, but
Okay.
yeah, I'll grab one in a minute.
All right. I'll slide it your way. Yeah. But yeah, we had a really good time. I want to talk a little bit more about um, the events um, that we had this a couple weekends ago. Um, let's talk specifically about the ice conditions for folks that want to know, like, is the ice safe? It was safe. It's not as safe now, because what a lot of people don't know is ice melts from the bottom, not from the top, so you can't see it, right? And it's unfortunate that we had to cancel some events and whatnot, but we had a great time, and I think it was really cool to see how people, like Philip was talking about, how engaged they were. Um, what are Philip? What are some of the takeaways that you got from the events? Was there a couple of different things that you were like, man, this is questions that you got from folks in the community that you were like, I've never been asked that, or like, that's a really interesting question. Anything that stood out to you at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the curiosity surrounded like augers, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think that we demoed different types. So you have a hand auger and
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
yeah, so there's a couple different types of augers you can use. The basic one is a hand auger and it works perfectly fine. And then there's electric auger. There's also gas powered ones. There's a lot
Or
of
conversion
yeah,
augers with your
yeah.
drill.
Yeah, so if you already have a drill handy with high enough torque, then it works out pretty well. But I think people just were interested in that. I think it's something that you can really, if you're not catching any fish or there's not any fish to catch and you're just sitting there kind of by a hole, I think getting active and doing something and drilling a hole, I think everyone likes to do that. So everyone
Keeps
always,
you warm.
yeah, yeah, that too.
Right. If your blade is not very sharp, you're
Yeah,
gonna be there.
yeah,
But those things, and we have 6-inch augers,
yeah,
and they just go through. I mean, it's awesome. They just when they go right through the ice,
yeah,
man. Great, great equipment.
It was amazing how many people wanted to use the hand augers
Versus the electric
yeah,
auger.
versus the, yeah. And they were just enthralled with how that worked and that they could actually do it.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, it was really, really interesting because we had three different kind of augers. Like Philip was talking about, we had the hand auger manual, then we had the conversion auger with the drill, and then we had the Ion, which is like the Tesla, the Cadillac of augers. Big shout out to Ion, man. They make some great products. Speaking of that, speaking of Ion augers, Deanna Deanna found some deals on augers. You want to talk a little bit about that? About the Ion auger?
Oh, on Facebook Marketplace?
Well, that and what's the other store you went to that had them?
Oh, it was still iPhone Facebook Marketplace. But, they were advertising there. But it's, what is it, Capra's?
Yeah, but there was another store that starts with a C. No, no, it's a big store where
It's a
you
big store.
you, you didn't see them at Costco.
Oh, Costco. They start with C.
Yeah, can't even
Yes.
remember that. That's right. That's the first one you sent me.
But
Yeah.
eventually,
I'm
way
like,
down.
I'm like, Costco, man.
Yeah.
That
The Gen 2 places.
for like $400, just a little, just slightly north of 400
Mhm.
bucks. Gen 2, but still, man, that's a great deal, man.
Yeah, I was telling Ray last year, I even having ice fish before in my life, I have not done it enough to really know. So I went out with like a dull 6 inch auger with my dad, and we were trying to drill a hole, and it was like 15 minutes gone by 20. We're like, this is not going to happen. And then so like there was a guy with pulling along his shelter, and we were like, can you just drill like 2 holes for us, and we'll be fine for the day. Like that's all we need. And then he comes over with the iron auger, shunk, 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 and I was like, I need to start looking. Go to Facebook
Yeah,
and yeah, I got on Facebook, and that's also a really good way. I think there's a large barrier to entry for ice fishing stuff. It's just so much equipment. So I think looking used, finding other ways to kind of go around those new price tags is really
Yeah, I
helpful.
think now's a good time without, again, like you said, we had to cancel a bunch of events
yeah,
because the
Yeah.
ice isn't very safe right now.
yes,
But
not
now
very
we
safe.
have some clearance happening on some of these things.
Yeah,
So,
Philip brought up a good point. Let's continue. Let's put these together. So Philip brought up barriers for ice fishing. There's a lot. There are a lot of barriers because ice fishing it can be expensive. It can be.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be, but it can be. You know. So let's talk a little bit about like, and we talked about this in our previous show, but I think it's an important thing to talk about. I really do, you guys. What is the basic stuff that you need to get out there? You know, and we'll segue to now's the time to start buying stuff
Yeah.
because I think they go hand in hand,
Mhm.
right? So, Deanna, we'll start with you. What do you think is the basic stuff that people need, to get started, and then Philip can kind of fill in what if you miss anything because I know for me, I know like John Deek, a big shout out to him, one of our pro staff. That dude will be out there in his Crocs and underwear, man. He and
Okay.
and a bucket. He don't care, man. That dude's a savage.
Yeah.
He's never cold. So you have that extreme. I don't recommend doing that, folks. Don't do that. Do not be out there in your underwear and Crocs and socks. Leave that to John Deek. But he's crazy, man. But what would you say are some of the things, basic things,
Things that
especially for yeah, okay.
to get through
Get
the
get, get
ice,
through the ice.
or at least someone comes driving by and you can ask them to use their
Hey,
umbrella.
hey, excuse me.
Something to sit on, probably. It's not
Hmm.
necessary, but enough clothing to stay warm
Hmm. Yeah,
and a rod and reel with some bait.
yeah, yeah. And and necessarily, do you need a rod and reel, right? Yeah, but you don't have to have that either. You can get a jiggle stick. You can get a. I've seen people with a pop can and see them do that.
Yeah.
Philip, what do you think?
I think definitely from my experience last year, trying ice fishing after not doing it for several years or since I was a kid. I mean, usually everything was all set up for me, so I never really went through that process
Mhm.
anyways. But definitely auger with a sharp blade, even if it's a cheap auger, get a new blade if you
Yeah,
can, or
or
get your blade sharpened,
sharpen
yeah,
it,
or sharpen your
sharpen it.
blade. Uh, and then I would say, yeah, just like a jiggle stick if you're just starting out. Kind of do it in pieces, but make sure you have the important pieces like we're talking about here, because yeah, sometimes it can be overwhelming all the stuff that you can buy for it, but sometimes you don't. You can really simplify it. If you can drill a hole, you have something to fish with. And then also yak tracks. Even 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
I've been doing outdoor stuff all my life, and I still just didn't even think to wear yak tracks, and I was shuffling all around. So if you have some boots or some cleats or something, if it's going to be icy that day, definitely important. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think these are all great tips for folks in the community. If for me, I think that one of the things that I like to tell folks is don't go out there by yourself.
yeah,
Go with somebody. Uh, if you know somebody, buddy up to them, befriend them. Like go to a Facebook. There's a lot of clubs. What is a club you're involved in, Diana?
Women's Anglers of Minnesota.
Yeah, shout out to them.
There's tons of people. There's a
Yeah,
chain. post like, "Hey, I'm going here this weekend. If anyone
Right,
wants to join me."
right, exactly. And
Mhm.
and then you buddy up with somebody, then you can see what gear they
Yeah.
have and what you know what I mean. So they they say there's that joke. Have you guys heard it before? Um, the best friend to have is a friend with a boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you don't ever have to buy it, store it.
Yeah.
You can just go fishing with that person.
Yeah.
You know, and ice fishing is no different.
Yeah.
You know, ice fishing is no different. Uh, Philip, I want to ask you, how did you just purchased a bunch of clam stuff?
Mhm.
You got the what? You got the 400 X or X 400?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, you got that. And you went out ice fishing with your father.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your father's name?
Bill.
Bill. William.
Yeah, William.
William.
Yeah.
Yeah. Senor Bill.
Yeah.
How'd you guys do? Tell us a little bit about your fishing trip with your father.
Didn't do that well. Caught one.
I appreciate the honesty.
I caught the one fish though, so I caught the one small perch. So I was pretty proud of
Mm,
that. Last year when we went out, he caught the one perch. So hasn't been a very good run, but
even
at
out.
least we're even.
Bonding.
Yeah, yeah. It's more
Yeah.
about that, I guess, is in getting out. I think is the bigger thing.
Mhm.
But it went pretty well. It went better than the year before, where we went out and couldn't drill a hole and forgot a scooper and everything that
Oh
goes
man,
along.
the
That's really
ladle.
important. A ladle. You think
Oh,
it?
Add that to our list.
There's no way you can get the ice chips out on your own without getting your hands wet unless you have a ladle.
I do not recommend putting. I'm in our programs, you guys, and
Yeah,
you guys saw this
yeah,
little kids using their
yeah,
hands, and I'm like, don't do that,
yeah,
don't do that. You know, it's fine. I mean, they have gloves and stuff too, but I'm like,
yeah,
they're taking off their gloves or using their
yeah,
hands to scoop up the ice. I'm like, oh my god,
It's hard to warm up again.
very, very, very much so.
Well, how big was this perch?
Yeah, man, jumbo perch.
it was a hefty perch. It was maybe
Mhm.
this big, so
All
it
right,
wasn't a baby.
yeah, nice little jumbo. Yeah,
Yeah.
Minnesota.
yeah, what you get it? What you catch 'em on?
Just like a crappie jig and a
Mm.
mealyworm, I think. So
Mm,
yeah, but it went really well. I think just setting up the shelter and like having that gear was awesome because like the year before my boots weren't waterproof and I didn't have like I just felt pretty cold, which kind of just it takes the fun
mm.
out of it. If you don't have a shelter and you're cold, it's just yeah, it's not as fun of a thing to want to go back to. But yeah, the shelter and then the float suit really helped. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the float suit. I mean, that's another thing. Again, I think that could be a barrier,
yeah,
going back to barriers. Um, I mean, our float suits, we have a great partner in Clam,
hmm,
and they give us an incredible discount, and we were blessed to have them as a
yeah,
supporter and as a sponsor. So we're able to purchase these
yeah,
things for our staff and if or provide an like incredible discount. And folks in the community are like, "Hey, man, like, how do I get one of those?
yeah,
Hook it up." And it's not that simple, right? So, like, what do we do? Like,
hmm,
if you don't have a float suit,
yeah,
well, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but take a floating device with you, man. You should already have one with you. Or if you feel that unsafe, A, you shouldn't be out there. B, if you are out there, wear a life jacket.
yeah,
There's literally people that walk on the ice. I've
hmm,
seen them with life jackets on.
yeah,
You know,
They have the ice picks.
ice picks. Yep,
yeah,
ice picks around the neck.
Take it out.
You have your
Spot.
spud bar.
yeah. There's ways to do it without it. I mean, I was like only my toes were not warm last year, and it was just because of layers. Like you have a jacket, you have a hoodie, thick socks, some waterproof pants. It's yeah, that's a good start.
And
So
that's key.
yeah,
Waterproof. Gotta be waterproof.
yeah.
Yeah, is it for women? Is it different, like ice fishing for women versus men? Your experience, like what you see, like is that I don't know, like
Like what you
what
wear.
you wear? Yeah, like anything like that. Is there any?
I think women have the luxury of being able to wear men's clothing. And Clam makes the beautiful women's suits as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they
You know
do.
that come in pink or I think they're black with pink or black with turquoise.
Turquoise. Yep. Yep.
I think women can wear the men's suits as well. They, might not fit quite as well, but
Hmm.
they do. And there's other brands as well, but
Yeah. Yeah, they do a really good
and
job.
the trick is to stay warm, whatever keeps you
Yeah.
warm.
Yeah,
You're not there to look good for anyone. Just being warm. So
right,
All right.
right.
I mean, I wear my clam hat all the time, so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. When you're not ice fishing,
I know.
you wear it all the
yeah,
time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. Are there any other barriers that you guys see? You know, other than like gear? Um, what about accessibility? You know, like let's talk a little bit about that because that could be a barrier in its own. You know, like Philip, Indiana, people ask, "Hey, what's the best place to go fishing?
Hmm.
You know, ice fishing. Excuse me. You know, we get asked that a lot, and I think the correct answer, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it's never good to answer with a question, but like I always like to say or ask, "Hey, where do you live?"
Hmm.
And like, "Oh, I live right over in Uptown. You know, damn, Sky has some great ice fishing." Or like, "Oh, I live in South Minneapolis. Oh, do you live near Nokomis or Harriet?" Actually, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
That's where you should be fishing.
Hmm.
You know, and because there, I think there's a, and you guys may or may not agree, but there's a misconception where or this perpetual stereotype of like you have to go up north, you know, to like catch walleyes or
Yeah.
catch fish, and it's like that's not true. That's not necessarily true. What do you guys think of that? You know, what do you
Yeah, I
think?
mean, I think there is a stereotype that you have to go up north, and I think, to be fair, right now, I think you do have to go for north to
Yes, to
get
be
some
fair.
safe ice.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
But you definitely don't have to go to the Lake of the Woods, which is, a good 4-hour drive up north. But that is what people know.
Mm-hmm.
But there are beautiful lakes in our own Minneapolis community and St. Paul community, and they're just as accessible as any other lake up north, if not more accessible because there's parking around them, and there's usually
Hmm.
parking lots near them, and there's
Mm-hmm.
other people there, and you kind
Mm-hmm.
of know where you are in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
you can drive there in 10 minutes and drive home. Or
Yeah, in and out. Philip, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think making it I think if you go super far out of your way or to go up north or if you make it an entire event, you make it a whole weekend thing, and some people don't have the ability to do that. People have jobs, they work, they have kids, so it's like if you have a small time window and it's nearby, like whether it's however you get there
Mm,
is I think if you it's just getting there, right? So like
Mhm.
whatever's gonna make it easier. Some people do hobbies and they get all involved and then they have a big shelter they got to pull around and
mm-hmm.
they might never
Mhm.
ice fish because it's just such a big chore to go do
Mm-hmm.
it, and you don't
Mhm.
want a hobby to become a chore. So just yeah, make it as easy as possible on yourself and
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah. Well, we have in Minneapolis, you have 13 lakes
Yeah,
in the metro, 11 in St. Paul. You know, that's a lot of lakes.
yeah,
356 in the Hennepin and Ramsey County,
hmm,
all around. That's a lot of water, man. That is a
yeah,
lot of water. So we have
Mhm.
plenty of opportunities
yeah,
to get fishing in. I will just say this till I'm blue in the face. Fish the lake that's close to you.
yeah,
You know,
Fish
because
what you know.
yeah, fish where you know, and you'll get very intimate with that lake
yeah,
too. You know, you get really good at it. Like our pro staff, big shout out to Phil Bedon, the Mexican Frenchman, man. That dude, you put him on Phelan, he'll put you on fish right away,
yeah,
like that. I mean, that dude,
Mhm.
you know, the fish actually, he's like the fish whisperer out there. He's that good, man. You know, you can probably reach down and grab him. That's how good he is. I'm
yeah,
serious. He's very good, man. And but he grew up on that lake. He
yeah,
grew up, you know, I think based on the podcast, you guys listen to it.
mhm,
What, like a block or
Couple
two,
blocks. Yeah.
couple blocks from
Mhm.
there. He fished it every day.
yeah,
Him and his buddies. So there's a lot of opportunities to do a lot of ice fishing and stuff. You know, I want to segue and back or go back to the events that we had. What did you guys think was um, what do you guys think people took out of the events we had? Because we were teaching the same curriculum, we did the exact same thing,
Mhm.
all 5 events. What do you think, in your guys' opinion, what stuck with people? What are one or two or three things that you're like, these people are really engaged about this, or they're, and I think Philip hit it, the auger
Mhm.
was is it Auger for sure
yeah.
was what else was what did you guys notice that was like man you know that was really they're really interested in this or like or they were asking about this other thing Philip anything that you notice other than the Auger
Yeah, I think just like what type of fish are in the lake. I got some questions about that, or are there any fish here at all? Because everyone's really saying,
because people were not
yeah.
catching fish right
But I think. if you don't really see any fish coming up, you don't see people catching fish, it can be kind of discouraging at times that, but also you just don't really know what's out there. You don't know the species of fish, and even took me a long time like to learn that what fish, yeah, which species and like what you use to catch them. And I think yeah, just yeah, I think that's just like it seems basic, but what is a panfish? What is a sunfish? Because the fish that they did catch, they don't know what it is, and
Yeah.
yeah, just explaining a species or what a species means, and yeah,
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a great point. Dana, what about you?
I just, I mean, I think it's that how easy it is, or easy it looks, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and that the ice provides you with an opportunity to get to parts of the lake that you couldn't get to from the dock.
yeah,
Hmm.
You can walk across to this part where only a boat could get in the
hmm
summer and fish that little part of the lake. But, um, and then just, that in Minnesota, we have to learn to enjoy all four seasons. And this is one way that we can enjoy winter.
Yeah. Well, there. Some seasons are longer than others, man.
Right.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness. Yeah. That's such a good point. Um, yeah. You guys bring up some really good points. We had 3 organizations, 5 events. We had the YMCA, we had the neighborhood house, and we had Dakota County, and we had folks from all walks of life. I mean, incredibly diverse communities, diverse people that spoke different languages, and that's what we specialize in. So it was really cool for me to like look at the diversity of people that were there, and everyone, no matter where they're from socioeconomically, what language they spoke or they didn't speak. They had one goal that day, was to catch a fish.
yeah,
And the other thing that's really cool is for I would say 100%, and maybe you guys would push back on this, and it's okay. Everyone was a first time ice angler that day
yeah,
for those 5 events.
Most of them, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
yeah,
We're
I would
biased.
I would say
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That's incredible, man.
Yeah,
A lot of people are walking on the ice for the first time,
yeah,
whether it's even like,
Right.
been on an ice skating rink before,
Mm,
or
wow. Yeah, that's true.
mhm.
Yeah, a lot of new. I mean, this is brand new for
yeah.
people. You know, was there any questions that you guys? I always like when people stump me with a question.
hmm
Any questions that you're like, oh, let me chat. Let me get back to you on that. Anything like that? Did you get any questions, especially in Spanish? I feel that there's things that are not translatable. Some things, not all
hmm
things. You can find a way to explain it,
yeah.
but it doesn't like you can't translate everything properly. Did you guys find that like while we were out there working with these communities? Did you sense that, feel that, or have an opportunity to like go through that?
Not that specifically. I think we had a great conversation about, you went through about how the indigenous people kind of
How they fit? How
used the fire and how
to?
they
Yeah,
fished. And then the question after that was, well, who invented ice fishing?
yeah.
What community invented it?
I have an answer.
Well, our discussion went towards nobody necessarily invented it. It was like we did it, or people did it out of necessity.
People that were hungry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
People who
so
were hungry
it's
were
who
like,
invented it. They just
uh,
yeah,
knew fish were there
right,
yeah,
and had to figure out a way to get
to get
there.
them.
So it wasn't necessarily a stumping question, but
yeah.
it was a good discussion.
Yeah. Philip, did you have a kind of a follow up with that? What Deanna's talking about like who invented ice fishing?
I don't know about that in particular. I think the only thing I had a little bit of a challenge with is I was talking to a little kid who was fishing, and I was trying to he he kind of did things a little bit in reverse. Like he would open the clasp when just like right before he started fishing, like kind of just had to learn how to fish. He just hadn't fished before, and
Sure. So you're talking about
I
opening the bail.
yeah,
Yeah,
opening
yeah,
the
yeah,
bail.
yeah.
And see, even I don't know the word in
That's
English,
all
so
right.
I didn't know the word in Spanish to describe bail or opening.
Mhm.
Um,
And
so I
that's
just
what I
kind of just
mean.
motioned, and
Yeah.
like then I asked you, and
Yeah, you
or I know
asked
I
me what
asked
the word
you.
for reel was. Like, how do you reel?
Yeah, and
And
you
I was
were
like,
I don't know.
Right. Well, like
Yeah,
I was talking to Deanna about this. I have a a list of words that, like, for example, like crankbait doesn't
Hmm.
exist.
Yeah.
The word crank, because it's a compound word,
Yeah.
right? So instead of that, it's suñuelo, which just
Okay.
means bait.
Yeah.
Well, what about the crank part?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So crank is to move, to like
Yeah.
to crank something, crank that thing.
Mhm.
Well, you're cranking, and that doesn't
Yeah.
translate to in Spanish. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. They'll have another word, but
Yeah.
that's a different conversation. But those are the kind of
Yeah.
things that, like, as a pro angler, as someone that works in these communities, as a professional, being a professional outdoorsman or women, you get these questions. You're like, oh man, I don't
Yeah.
want to answer that, you know. But that's
Yeah.
why we do the work, because for those opportunities, and we learn a lot.
Yeah.
We learn a lot. I mean, is that? I mean, that's what you learned. You're like,
Yeah.
man, that's what you're trying to say, right, Philip? Like,
Yeah.
I learned that I didn't really know that there was. I learned that there's no word for that.
Yeah.
I got to figure that out. You
Yeah.
know, I got to figure that out somehow.
And be
So
humble because
yeah,
maybe somebody has a word that
it's
you haven't
similar.
thought of yet or is similar.
Yeah.
And just asking the people in the community because
Yeah,
they often will have words I have never thought of
right. No,
in our language.
right,
Yeah.
right. I really like, one of my favorite parts of fishing, ice fishing in particular, is when we show people the waxworms,
Hmm.
and then we'll show them, like, the tip ups, and stuff like that. But the waxworms, they're like, ugh, they get grossed out by it. And I'm like, well, you don't have to use a waxworm. You can use this plastic. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I don't have to touch it. You don't have to touch, live bait if you don't want to. And that's why we do that, because there's a dichotomy there between, like, people get grossed out
Mhm.
and they don't want to do that. Like, oh, that's disgusting. I don't want to touch that thing. Like, well, you don't have to touch the live bait. You can put a little,
Yeah.
plastic on there, and then
Mhm.
you can use that. They're like,
Yeah.
is it still effective? Yeah, it's effective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. So that's pretty cool. You
Yeah.
know,
You
how,
took away a barrier.
what, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
took
will.
away a barrier.
That's
It's fear.
right.
Touching like
And you should see some of these parents, man. They don't want to touch their
Yeah.
little, their kids are like they're taking like worms home with them, giving them names. And here's mom. Oh my god, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Get that out of your pocket. Little Johnny's got a little worm in his pocket. Um, that's cool. What did you guys? How did you guys see the reaction on the tip ups when people saw a tip up for the first time and explained to them how we were explaining as a team? You can use two rods. You can have one here, one here. You can do this, or
Hmm.
you can have one rod. And you can have a tip up. What did you guys, Deanna? What did you take out of that? Your reaction? Because a lot of people that don't know that. They're ice fishing. You can use two rods
Hmm.
or a rod and then an additional tip up, and they don't even know what a tip up is.
I don't think they'd ever seen him before, and it was pretty disheartening when none of the tip ups went off.
Yeah.
But when one
Yes.
accidentally went off, I mean, everyone was over there. So
Yes.
clearly, everyone's eyes looking here and there to see if it's going to go. But
Who accidentally? What happened? That, like,
I
Oh,
don't know.
there was a little kid who walked over, and I was so far away I couldn't say anything. Walked
okay.
over and then picked it up and moved it because he wanted to fish in the hole, and then it popped up, and then he was
Oh
like
man,
trying to figure it out,
that's what
but
happened.
he put it. So,
Uh, I was wondering. Oh my
yeah.
god, I just didn't want anybody to get hurt, like, on the way there. Like, ah.
Everyone.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. See, I didn't know that, Philip. That's good. We drilled a lot of holes that day.
Mhm.
We were on Holland Lake, and that was a lot of fun. However, getting to and leaving that lake with all the gear was very, very was a workout.
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
down wasn't so bad.
No, no, it's fine. Gravity's helping you, but then getting back up that big old hill.
We just had a lot of equipment, so
Yeah, we did. We had
yeah.
a lot of equipment. hmm that lake has trout in it, and we were on fish. We were fishing in a good area, and there was a little kid. I forgot the little kid's name, but he caught two fish. He caught a couple fish,
He
so that
was
was
determined to catch a fish before he left, and he kept moving his hole or drilling new
Yeah.
holes to find the fish.
yeah, yeah,
Finally caught one.
yeah.
And
Too
they didn't
bad.
want to leave.
No, he was like, I'm not leaving till I catch fish.
Little sister was crying. She wanted to go home.
Really? He was like, "I am not leaving. I just caught one.
He's
I'm about
like,
to
yeah,
tear it up."
go warm up in the tent. I'm fishing.
Yeah,
It was,
go to the shelter. It's fine. Yeah, and
but determination. He caught a fish.
there's something about that. What was really cool too about we had the X600 shelters again. Shout out to Clam Man. That shelter is badass. It has that big old door, that big skirt, seamless enter and exit mechanism. I mean, I can't. I don't know any other shelter on the market
Yeah.
that is that good. I'll
Super easy to set up.
super
Yeah.
easy to set up. I'll
Mhm.
take the Pepsi challenge on that, man, with Eskimo and Otter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I would tell our community, you got to get clams the deal.
Yeah.
It's like the best stuff. It's the
Yeah.
best shelters on the market.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably, the first time we set it up, maybe took us 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe.
maybe,
The first
yeah, the first
when
time,
we
yeah.
take all the bands off.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
But after that, it's two,
Yeah.
3 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
30 seconds to
It
holes and
Yeah.
didn't take much.
mm-mm.
You used your shelter for the first time with your
Yeah.
father. We'll circle back to that.
Yeah.
How was your father's a he's a doctor, he's a
Yeah.
physician. So how long did it take you, and was your father
Yeah.
impressed
Yeah.
by? He was like, what?
Yeah.
He was like, what? Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. He was actually like pretty. He was like admiring the build quality. Genuinely, I'm not even saying this as
No, no,
because they're our sponsor, but he's like, this is really well built. Like it's like
yeah,
like all the corners that pop out, they're like reinforced with the plate on the other side, which like those kind of things tend to like break over time if you really use them a lot. And like if it's not like a strong, like everything is just really built well. And I've noticed that too. I mean, how many things you have are like the zippers break because they're
oh
too
God,
small or
yeah,
you can't grab it because you have gloves on and like it seems like they thought of everything. So and we didn't have a heater because I was like maybe I'll buy a heater. I haven't gotten to that point in my ice fishing journey to even get a heater yet. And that compared to the outside, it was still really warm and yeah,
yeah,
pretty
Just the
awesome.
body heat warmed it
Yeah,
up. It really hasn't been
yeah.
overly
yeah,
cold.
I think I think as long as you're out of the
yeah,
wind, you're fine. But
yeah,
like, and even still, man, like, I just wanted to see what your father's reaction was to that because, your dad's a smart guy,
yeah,
and then he's got a son who's he got a dad who's a doctor and a son who's an engineer. And he's like, let me show the old man what's up, man. Your dad's like, what? Like,
yeah,
what is that? My father would be like, you know what my father would say? Let's bring this hunting.
yeah,
We use it as a hunting blind. I'm like, Dad,
yeah,
it's,
Blue.
the deer are gonna be like, there they are, right there.
yeah,
We're gonna scare the deer, but it's
yeah,
such a good shelter, man.
Mhm.
It's such a good time.
It's
Yeah.
interesting that they make one for the summer as well, though. It's all screened.
yeah,
I forgot the name of that.
Yeah, I forgot the
Yeah,
name of
but
it too. I
I
should
mean,
know.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know the name of it, but
Yes.
they have other products that are like, excuse me. And I'm gonna. Well, you guys talk
Yeah.
run the podcast while I look.
Taking pictures of it. Said, just I can't, thinking about if people build those things in their backyard, but this would just be so easy to like set up while you're
yeah,
camping or throw it in your backyard on a summer mosquito-y day because you don't
yeah,
know how Minnesota gets.
yeah.
And it's the same
Quick,
idea.
quick set,
Just easy.
Quick.
Yeah,
quick set.
Yeah.
So clam as obviously clam.
Mhm.
Let me back up here. So we have clam products, all terrain, which are jigs. We have polar, which are different kind of trailers.
Mhm.
Then they have the quick sets. Quick set is like more for like Deanna was talking about spring, summer, fall. Dude, it's awesome. These things, and it's the same kind of construction.
mhm,
Same reinforced corners,
yeah,
grade material. Like it's phenomenal stuff, man.
yeah.
So I think it's they just do a really good job
Mhm.
all around and stuff. I in my
Yeah.
opinion. Okay, going back, what did your dad think of your ice armor suit?
He wants me to get him one. Yeah. He said I could use this for things other than ice fishing because I mean, realistically,
Mhm.
like ice fishing is a sport that you can really get into, but it's also something that you can do a couple times in the winter. So like having a it's very nice for if you're sitting around because there's a lot of jackets that you can layer for sitting around, but it's not going to keep you warm like that. That's very much like a yeah, kind of if you're standing around outside, you have an event like that, it can be really nice. So
One of the things that you said, and I knew, well, we know this because Sean Canuck, the designer
yeah,
of all the clam suits from clam to blackfish,
Mhm.
you said something really interesting where we're out there, we're carrying stuff, and you were like, "Man, I'm staying dry in this. I'm not like it doesn't make me sweat
yeah,
because it wicks. The
yeah,
technology makes you wick that sweat out,
yeah,
which is great."
yeah. I was surprised. I thought it would get hot in it,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, we wore that thing out there. We were sitting still, and they got windy.
Mhm.
Remember, you were like, "Hey, bring your jacket, right?
Mhm.
Because might get windy." And Deanna called it. It got a little windy,
yeah,
So I brought my. I don't. I usually I'm like John Deek. I usually just I'm out there, with a t-shirt on and my
yeah.
bibs, but it was cold. They got cold.
It's different
Mm-hmm.
and setting up versus when you're
Yeah.
sitting fishing or
Mm-hmm.
watching people.
When you're teaching, yeah, when you're moving
Yeah.
around is one thing.
Mhm.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, well, let's um let's move on to like ice conditions, and then we'll wrap things up here. Uh, we had to cancel a recently. We had an event tomorrow that we had to cancel, unfortunately, on Como Lake due to ice. It's just not. It's not a good idea to go out there when it's you have 50 degrees, 45 degrees, and we don't know how thin that. We can go out there, but even going out there to measure ice is dangerous.
Yeah.
So we had to cancel some events.
Well, just the safety of participants is number
Yeah.
one.
Number one.
So
It's a
whether
real
I myself go ice fishing is different than bringing a bunch of people and telling people it's safe.
it's what they call a hobby killer is if a kid falls through the ice,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or someone falls, like that's just you're never gonna go ice fishing again. Like
It's a
so it's
wrap.
like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's a wrap. Yeah.
so just it's not risk. Yeah.
Safety.
Safety, and that's the thing. We have to make sure our communities
Yeah.
are safe no matter where they're from. That's paramount. Like
Yeah.
their safety and the safety of everyone. You guys,
Mm-hmm.
staff. You know, you got crazy people like John Deek that is out there in the snowmobile,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
4 inches of ice. But
Yeah.
that's that he's and Abby.
Yeah.
Abby, that's she's but she to be
They're
fair,
safe. I mean, they
yeah,
make
no,
sure the ice
they're
is safe.
professionals. They're safe, and but see, John Deek is 6'6", over 200 pounds. He's a big man. Abby is like 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing, pounds. So she can be on 2 and 3 inches of ice.
Mhm.
To be fair, she's a very petite gal. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to cancel some events, but you guys are right, and I'm glad that we all share that same philosophy of safety with the community. It's very really really important. I want to close um, with you guys on what. Lastly, what advice would you give folks from the community to get started ice fishing? Right? What advice would you give? Hey, here's what I advise you to get started. That's the first part, and then the second part: to how do you continue your fishing journey? What do you have to do to like stay in, learn, and like what are some of the things that people can do that you guys did to like stay not only motivated but stay engaged in fishing? We'll start with you.
I think to get started, you come to a Baztec program. Feels weird. But,
Plug this. Plug
right.
this. That's the Baztec plug. That's the plug right there.
Fishing this year.
And you
Well,
might be right.
we'll see what the weather turns into.
We do have one event, but it's not on the ice. It's It's an
Yeah.
ice fishing event, but it's not on the.
Just a preview.
Well, it's
Yeah.
real quick, and I want to get to you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Anna Ferris called me, and she's like, "Ray, we had to cancel some stuff with her because of safety, obviously.
Mhm.
But she's like, we have a ice fishing event on the 25th, which is on a Sunday, but it's a community outreach thing. It's more informational. It's not on the ice, so people can get a feel for it
Mhm.
and like get information. It's more educational, but it's not
Mhm.
on the ice. I repeat, not on
No.
the ice. Okay, it'll be inland, on grass or concrete and stuff like that. But we're going to bring our shelter. We're going to show people buckets,
Mhm.
shelters, and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
so that's probably would be the last ice fishing event of the year. However, if I may, uh, Lucas, my buddy from the U of M that runs, he works with a lot of community partners. He is still hopeful, and so am I, that there can be an ice fishing event late February or early March,
Okay.
depending on if it gets cold. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, we'll
Keep
see.
we'll see. Keep our fingers crossed. I
Yeah.
told him through email, yes, let's do it, but we have to make sure we have at least 8 inches of ice.
Yeah.
So, but going back to the question, Diana, about um, how to get started
Yeah.
and how do you continue to be engaged in fishing?
I mean, truly, to get started, you find some free place to try it out and
Mhm.
see if you like it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a Baztec event or a local park and rec event,
Like Motor County, Ramsey
Motor County,
County,
yes, any,
yeah.
look them up. They're all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And then to continue, you have to find some way to get some education and learn more about techniques and things. Um, whether that's attending more events or
Mhm.
finding a community education, ice fishing program that would, kind of bring you through step by step, but just finding a way that you can continue to go and enjoy it.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be super expensive because that's going to break your bank.
Mm-hmm.
But what can you afford? What can you do? And again, it's finding the community around you to do it with.
Mhm.
Maybe you make some good friends while you're out there. Maybe you join a ice fishing group on Facebook, a local one, and you all meet out on the lake that day. And
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
bring an auger, and I bring a shelter, and you bring,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the rods, and then we don't have everything, but we all can be a community
Collaborate.
and
Yeah.
collaborate, be a community, and go together.
And that builds. That's a
Yeah.
great point. That builds community. One
Yeah.
hundred percent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Philip, what do you think? Same questions for you. How do, in your opinion, how do you get started in fishing, and how do you continue to be engaged through your journey, your own journey? Because we all have our own
Yeah.
journey, you know.
Yeah, I think the biggest part is probably initially if you've never done it before, definitely reaching out to a community organization like us or Facebook. I think that makes it so accessible. There's different groups, Minnesota ice fishing. I don't know if that's the name, but there's a lot of them. If you look up ice fishing and local wherever, you'll find something or
Mm,
people. And I think it is a niche, even though we're in Minnesota, it's a niche on the greater sphere of things. So I think if you find people that are within that niche, they're always passionate about it and they'd be happy to show you what interests them because people like talking about what they're interested in.
sure.
Hmm.
And they can also just help you kind of get into it. I think it's kind of like any hobby or any passion. Like my dad, he's getting closer to retirement. He wanted to start doing like astronomy, so like telescopes.
Oh,
And
really?
so you buy a telescope
Wow.
off Facebook, and like the pain of trying to learn that on your own, even like just like trying to even like me trying to help, I feel like I'm somewhat technologically adept. Like
Hmm.
it's a struggle. So like he found the Astronomical Society. So it's like it's similar to us where it kind of like it provides education, it provides a community around things where you can bring your telescope, other people help you with it. Um, I think yeah, it's there's a lot to ice fishing and you're not going to learn it just from YouTube. I think your techniques later on can get refined through YouTube or fishing with friends or whatever, but definitely find people that like to do it or know how to do it just to start out to see if it even interests you because maybe it doesn't. And it's better to learn that first before buying a bunch of stuff. So, yeah.
I think the ice fishing community is pretty open to new
Yeah.
people, and they want new people to join.
Hmm.
It's not so secretive, or
No.
they're willing to help anyone.
Yeah. And me personally, I found that it's pretty sitting around a hole and just jigging. If you don't have community, if you don't have people around you or things to talk about, it gets pretty boring, honestly. Especially if you're not getting, I get bored quite easily, but like, that's why I like open water fishing because I can move around. I mean, you can with ice fishing too, but again, it's like I think there's a lot of parts to it, but people are definitely important. Having someone to talk to, or just even friends and family, is important because yeah, otherwise you're just sitting out there on a bucket waiting. Yeah,
Freezing your ass off.
yeah,
You're like, oh God, why am I out here? Oh
yeah,
wow. Well, you guys, thank you so much. This is great. Yeah, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. Yeah, this is a lot of
yeah.
fun. Yeah, I will close with by thanking you guys very, very much for all the great work both of you do for the organization, all the great work you continue to do for the community. So thank you for that. I just want to close with next what we got going on. We have to, and that this is on me. We have to. I've been slacking. We have a giveaway for January.
Mm-hmm.
We have some really cool stuff. We have a. It's over here. I'm not gonna get up here, but we have a clam hoodie, grain belt clam
Mm-hmm.
combo hoodie, hat, all kinds of really cool stuff. Whoever like, share, subscribe, we're gonna put you in a bucket. We're gonna just pick a random name. Trust us, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna reach out to you and give us your address and stuff, and we'll mail this stuff out to you this month. When you watch this, same deal. Like, share, subscribe, and that'll automatically put you in a drawing because we're going to be doing the exact same thing. We're gonna give away a hat, a hoodie, and some other stuff, koozies, and all kinds of stuff. It's like a little package deal, you know. And we're going to be doing that throughout every month. We're going to give stuff away. Um, we are going to be selling Baztec swag. You know, we're going to be doing that. We have hoodies coming, hats. People are like, well, spring is coming. Hold your horses. You know, it's still pretty damn cold if it's spring.
Wear a hoodie
Yeah.
year round.
You're gonna wear a
Yeah.
hoodie around, and when you're out there fishing, man, it's cold. So more to come on that. We're gonna have beanies, long sleeve shirts, hoodies. So that's more to come on that. Next show, we're gonna have Phil Bedone, and we're gonna have Paulie G. uh, you guys don't know who he is, but he's one of the best ice anglers that Clam has. Everyone's really good, but this guy's like amazing. He's really good. Paul Gazzoni, I call him Paulie G. He's a really good, cool dude. Talked to him today. He said, "Yeah, man, I'd love to come out and do your podcast." He's just really busy with his kids, and he's got a lot of like stuff that kids do, like sports and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
we're trying to coordinate a time. So he'll be here. I think it'll be. I'm not exactly sure. It'll be maybe just Phil and I for the next one, and then Phil and then Paul and I for the next one. So we're going to continue to our ice fishing, Baztec ice fishing podcast here for our ice team. So with that said, you guys, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for being on. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. It's always good hanging out with friends, talking fishing, and drinking delicious grain belt beer.
Cheers.
Cheers. Salud.
Cheers.
All right. That's a wrap, you guys. Salud.